Hey guys, my hair is wet, ignore that. I am going to read Babel and I'm going to take you along for the ride. To be honest, I wasn't going to vlog the experience because usually I save vlogs for when I'm reading a book that is big and scary. It's usually a really massive classic, it's usually a book that I'm scared of and I want to read it and I need the moral support of a vlog. So this doesn't quite fall into the realm of that, but it is a fantasy and I am not really a fantasy reader. I read Dune recently and I definitely want to get more into fantasy. I mean, it's quite a big thing to do. It's a huge genre and the book's also long and I'm scared. So I'm quite excited to read this book because I believe it is the only one in the series. It is a historical fantasy about a... Apologies, my camera died. As I was saying, Babel is about an orphan who is Chinese who is brought to Oxford by a mysterious guardian, and he specifically is working in Oxford's translation centre that's called Babel. This story is about him kind of finding more and more about the sinister practices at Babel and how Babel and translation is used to just like further the pursuits of the British Empire. And the question is, can a student stand against an empire? And I've seen also that it kind of focuses on like, can you change an institution from the inside? It seems pretty highbrow, to be honest, but I'm pretty encouraged because people love it in general, but I'm also seeing a lot of the reviews specifically mention how intelligently it's written. Like, it's really, really smart. So I don't know, it just seems like an incredibly cool book. And this would be my second R.F. Kuang. I did actually read Yellowface and I did have my issues with it, but overall I really enjoyed it. I know people love complaining online and negativity, but I'm sorry to say I really think I'm going to enjoy this book. Okay, let us begin. I'm about to have a big reading session in bed, which is a lot of fun. I've just been out for dinner at a pub nearby. I had cassoulet and chips and a really good like Negroni actually. I think it was damson Negroni. I'm on page kind of 50 and I already am enjoying myself so much. There's a really funny little sassy intro from R.F. Kuang where she basically like gives a little bit of context, talks about how accurate it is to like real life Oxford and Oxford at the time, and there's this really sassy line at the end of it that's like, and if you notice any other discrepancies, then like kindly remind yourself that this is a work of fiction. And I was like, ooh. Other than that, we've met the main character. There's already just so much intrigue. I think that's like part of what's so fun about fantasy. Like, there's so much to learn. I think Dune being my first fantasy book really set the bar quite high, or I don't know, it depends which way you look at it, but kind of set the bar quite low when it comes to like expectations around grippingness, because Dune can be a bit dry and there's a lot of dialogue and I think some people find it a bit of a trudge. So yeah, just like first few pages of Babel, I just get the impression it's a lot easier to read than Dune and has a lot more very apparent grip. There's also a map. I love a good map. I forget that fantasy books often have maps and I think that's really cool. A few diagrams. It's a good time. Also, this book is like, wait, the page number's not. It's like 500 pages. Hi friends, it's been like 3 days and I'm on page 80, but do not let that fool you because I really am enjoying this book. It's just a bit more dense, like it has more of a classic vibe. It's a serious book and the atmosphere is so vivid. Like, I am absolutely loving it. I've been getting into Russian literature and it's honestly reminding me of this just because of, that's my oven, sorry. Just because of how he's travelled from Canton to London and then London to Oxford, and I'm really getting a feel for these locations. I know London, I don't know Oxford very well, Either way, I definitely don't know either of them at, you know, in the 1800s at this time, and I'm just loving how the surroundings are described. It's kind of slow but not too slow, like we're just savouring the change. The oven's being obnoxious. Ignore my oven in the background, it's broken. With books like this, I do just feel like I want to have big chunky reading sessions. It's not something that I like to dip in and out of. I would just prefer to, you know, set myself up with a cup of tea and read it on the sofa for like an hour. So that's why it has taken me a while to get to this point. Sorry, I've just realised my goggles and swimming cap, which are drying, they're in the frame. I don't want to jinx it, but I would be incredibly surprised if I don't end up loving this book. I'm getting a really, really good feeling. I think the themes are really cool, and I also think, as I mentioned, the book does focus on this like translation institute. You can just feel that theme throughout in the way that it's written and in the way that just like language comes into it and the study of language. It's just got this like multi-leveled obsession with language, obsession with the origin of words. That's incredibly fun. June is pretty much the only other fantasy book that I've read, and they have the similar feel of being written by a giant nerd. There's something about the fact that the author is creating an entire world, so the attention to detail is massive, and I don't know how to describe it other than just like with love. It's so clear that R.F. Kuang is a massive nerd. I literally missed my tube stop the other day because I was reading, which has never happened to me before. And to be exact, I didn't even just miss my stop. I missed the fact that I was on the district line, and I missed the fact that it was changing branches randomly because the district line likes to keep me on my toes. And so I ended up in High Street, Kensington, and I didn't want to be there. It was very annoying, but yeah, just a testament to how gripping I'm finding the story, how immersive it is. I'm on like 140 pages, I think, but it's pretty fast paced. A lot has happened. Like every few pages, you'll learn something really interesting. I just like don't know how much more interested in this book I can get, because so many questions in a really good way. I'm only halfway through and I'm already recommending this book to like everyone I come across, and I really wouldn't usually do that. I'm pretty sort of conservative about stuff like this. I don't want to recommend a book and then it end up being awful, but I'm pretty in love at this point. I think one of the things that's really cool is that this is technically fantasy. Like it has kind of magic fantasy objects in it, but it's very accessible fantasy because the whole world around it is more historical fiction, and then you've got the silver bars which can do crazy magical things, and so you end up with this touch of fantasy and it's not difficult to understand what's going on. Hi, so I'm finding this book really, really nostalgic. Although I didn't go to Oxford, I really did enjoy my time at university, but it was also really hard work, and Babel just romanticizes Oxford so intensely, which is enjoyable because Oxford is known as this beautiful historic place, and with huge wealth, and like the student experience is quite unique and quite ridiculous, and R.F. Kuang is just bringing in so much detail. Like there's such an atmosphere, describing like how the mood changes from term to term, exam time to like post-exam time, the summer times. It's just so like warm and rich, and I'm just having such a good time for that reason. But I also think it's really clever because at the centre of the book is Robin's conflict around loving Oxford and it being one of his first kind of homes, and places where he feels safe and has friends and all that stuff, but also knowing that he's working on things that are like potentially pretty evil, potentially kind of helping with the oppression of, you know, people like his mum. And it's just more exciting that somewhere so beautiful and the source of so much kind of joy and like carefree happiness actually has this really sinister underbelly. I'm really hoping to make a huge amount of progress today, possibly even finish it. And I actually might go and treat myself to like a reading session in bed, which I'm a big fan of. I never do it, I always dream about it. Why is this blurry? But a little reading session in bed really fills my soul. Like during the day, I don't know. Okay. Hello, we've got 100 pages left and it's getting pretty crazy. Incidentally, Babel is a very topical book right now because I think a day ago, 2 days ago, the Hugo Awards excluded it for very opaque reasons. I actually don't really know much about the Hugo Awards, but from what I've read, there's just no clear reason why Babel would have been excluded, and it looks like it's because of censorship, essentially. And I did see a post from Kuang that kind of spoke about it and was pretty direct about how she felt. It's kind of interesting to be reading the book and then in real time, like this discourse about it happening. I also read a comment. So Kuang posted about this exclusion from the Hugo Awards, and then one of the comments was like, maybe it's just not good, and then said that they found Babel really pretentious. And it's funny because I really don't think Babel is. Like, to me, it's just someone who loves language and writing kind of nerding out about stuff. But yeah, this commenter was like, I feel like the whole book is just you being spoken down to. And I was like, oh, this is so weird, because even if I stretch my brain, I cannot imagine finding Babel like a condescending book. I think my one gripe that I'm finding, I still really love the book. I don't regret recommending it to all those people when I was halfway through, but the story is a little bit predictable. I don't really think there's anything wrong with a predictable story, but I don't know. I almost wish it was a bit more crazy. There are some patches where my understanding of the secret society, my understanding of like different characters feels a little bit shallow, and I just want to know more. But I feel like that's my most common complaint that I have about books, so it's clearly a bit of a me problem. Guys, I have just finished Babel, and not gonna lie, I actually didn't like the last 100 pages that much, or at least I just liked them a lot less than the rest of the book. I don't know, I wanted more. I honestly think that Kuang kind of built up a story that was going to be really, really difficult to end in a way that felt satisfying anyway. So these are my thoughts, and overall, was it worth the hype? Absolutely. I thought that the story was really, it felt so original. I loved all the nerding out, the whole atmosphere. A lot of really complicated feelings and dynamics were explored really well and really clearly. And it was all just really entertaining. Like, I was really keen to pick it up. Reading it wasn't a chore. Sorry, I realise now that isn't the highest sounding praise. But yeah, overall, absolutely worth the hype. Sorry, I'm about to eat lunch, so that's what that noise was. Having an aubergine pork dish. I've got my garnish here. No more to say, really. Thank you for reading this far. Let me know if there are any other books that you want me to vlog my experience of. Have a lovely week. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.